Hi, and welcome to Marketing Optimization with Alex Designs. I'm your host, Alex Harris, and today we are chatting with Dave Delaney. How you doing, Dave?
I'm great. How are you?
Great. Today we are flipping the script, talking more networking and partnerships for upcoming conferences and to make the best out of your conference schedule for 2014. I really love going to conferences, not only for the great speakers and the education that you get, but for the people that you meet and the partnerships that you can leverage for years to come. And Dave is an expert in this space. He has written the book, New Business Networking, and it's available on Amazon right now. Dave, to get started, what are you looking forward to most before you arrive at a conference? And before you even answer that, how to prepare for a conference if you want to seek out individuals and network with them at that conference?
Well, it's important to get a grasp of who's actually attending that conference. So, and that, if you already have a decent sized network of people to reach out to, I mean, that could be as simple as doing that, just sending them an email and saying, hey, who's going to New Media Expo, for example? I'd love to catch up while you're there. So doing that. But then there's other ways too. I mean, a lot of events and conferences now have open invites, or not open invites, but open registrations that actually show who's attending, which can be extremely helpful. So, many events use Eventbrite, and that is a perfect place to go to see who among your friends and who is attending that event. You can connect it with Facebook and get a grasp of who your Facebook friends are that are attending. And also doing just like an advanced search on Twitter, searching out the event hashtag and start, create a list and things like that ahead of time. So you can start interacting with people that will be there. Certainly with speakers, it's wise to start connecting with the speakers and the sponsors and the organizers ahead of time, because those are the people that for sure are going to be there because they're on their websites.
Yeah, I think it's when at conferences, speakers are so used to people coming up to them, and it's really hard for them to really intake all that at the time of the event. So if you're able to lead up to them by tweeting to them or connecting with them on their comments of their blog or whatever, I think it's really a great way to really connect with them and lower that barrier of entry when you first meet them. And it's not so, are you stalking me or whatever?
Right.
Because it can be a little bit creepy. I know one of the jokes I follow you on Twitter.
Yeah.
And why are you of value in my life?
Right.
I think there needs to be a little bit more than that. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So, do you have any tips when you arrive at the conference to really connect with those speakers or individuals even further? Asking for their business card or not asking for that business card. I know you talk about that a lot. How do you approach that?
Yeah, business cards are extremely important, and don't let anybody tell you different. They are still very important, and even with the most tech savvy crowd, I mean, there are plenty of great apps to swap content information really simply, and of course, there's things like NFC chips and QR codes or whatever that you can geek out over exchanging information. But really, at the end of the day, a paper old school business card is the way to go. So it is important to have business cards with you. I always try to get, what I talk about is in my book, and I've got a chapter on business cards specifically. But one thing I focus on is a point about asking somebody for their business card before offering your own, because it's really annoying when somebody just takes your card and goes, here, take my card, So that's really annoying. So it's better to be more subtle and ask for somebody else's business card. They may not even ask for your card in exchange, and that's fine. You have their information to follow up, but they may also ask. So do that. It gets down to sort of networking, basics, but things that get overlooked sometimes about being that guy at the conference that's just trying to collect as many cards as possible while they're there. And really, if you're doing it that way and you're trying to go for numbers, going for quantity over quality, that's what you're going to get.
Yeah. Nobody's
going to remember you because you were too busy running around trying to collect business cards. And really, you could do that without even going to the event if you want.
Yeah,
So.
absolutely. You collecting a whole bunch of business cards and maybe following them on Twitter is about as far as it's going to get you if you really don't dig in, create that deep internal relationship with individuals. And I think you also really need to have a purpose, whether your business, your goal is to create business or to get people on interviews. Like, more than likely that would be my goal, is to meet people and then eventually maybe get them on my show. Mm-hmm. Do you have some ideas to leverage those relationships once you meet them, maybe after the conference is over or the next day?
Well, I think it's very important I think LinkedIn is extremely important, and many people it's because it's not as sexy as Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever, Snapchat, which may be too sexy in some cases, but I would know because let's keep it that way. But with LinkedIn is so important because if you're establishing relationships, you've established a relationship, you've met people. The important thing is to follow up right after the event and to say thanks and it was great to meet you, and remind them who you are and how you met, and make sure your actual photo is on your LinkedIn profile so they actually remember you by your face. And as I always say when I'm talking, I do like presentations and things on LinkedIn, and I always talk about, like, don't have that random hand on your shoulder cropped out of the photo on your LinkedIn profile, because that just looks terrible and kind of creepy, to be honest. Looks like you've like cropped out somebody out of the photo. It's like, ugh.
Ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So, but yeah, reach out to people, connect with them on LinkedIn, and you can leverage those relationships. As it goes, but I think the most, and I mean, great things come from that. I've had my own experiences that way of reaching out to people that I met at a conference, and it may be months or years later, even in some cases. But always in networking, I mean, the important thing is that you're always going out of your way to help other people first. People make a mistake of thinking of networking, and networking's got sort of a bad name to it, to some people anyways, because I think it's crucial to your business, to your career. But I think a lot of people think of it as just, kind of a place where it's like a speed dating setup where people are throwing business cards at you, and it doesn't have to be that way. So be cool when you follow up with people. Maybe that follow up is actually an offer to introduce them to somebody else in your network that you think they should know. And keeping track of those notes when you meet people at events is really important. So, if I meet you at a conference, I may take a note on your business card after we've talked to say, oh, I've got to follow up with Alex because he's got to meet a friend at a television network or whoever it is. And by keeping track of those notes, then you have a point to follow up after the fact. And again, it's not following up saying, hey, Alex, can I sell you a car? It's instead it's, hey, it was great to meet you. Let's stay connected, and I'd love to introduce you to somebody I know in the video space or whatever it is that you should talk with. So,
yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. Going out of your way to really help people as much as you can, and just go out of your way to provide a ton of value in any situation is going to make you build that relationship further down the line. And meeting each of these speakers can be unique in itself. Have you seen where there's just some speaker there that you're scared to talk to, or you think is just not approachable? You have any tips to meet that type of speaker that you may be intimidated about?
Yeah, I think it's really important it almost gets down to like stage fright and things too, where it's important to just remember that people are human, and that whoever the speaker is, or it wasn't always the speaker. Like I'm speaking, I'm very excited to be speaking, but I've attended many of conferences where I just was there as an attendee, and I remember what that's like. And it's not like it's that different anyways. I mean, I'm still going to be attending as an attendee, and a speaker. But my point to that is, I think, people are either cool or they're jerks, and hopefully they won't be a jerk to you. But I think if they are a jerk to you, then you can log that in your memory and remember that, because I think it's important. I think going up to a speaker and asking them for 5 minutes or for a chat or whatever is fine to do. And I think, as you said, I think speakers, I think it can be intimidating. It certainly is intimidating to speak to people sometimes. And I talk a lot about that in the book too, about going to a conference, going to a networking event or whatever, where you don't know anyone and where you're sort of it's intimidating. So, but specifically talking to talking to speakers, I think most speakers will talk to you. The thing is to understand too is that if you're talking to them as soon as they finish, no speaker, like I don't think any speaker is goes up on stage without being nervous. Like it happens. No matter how good you are, you could be Obama and you're still going to be nervous when you get up at the podium. And it's rather, public speaking is rather exhilarating, but it's also sort of exhausting too, because you've been speaking for 40 minutes or an hour or whatever it is. So understand too that if maybe they don't give you as much attention straight off after the event or after the presentation, it's probably because they're completely maxed out and exhausted. So that's something to keep in mind too. But I think reaching out ahead of time, as we were talking about before, is a good way to do things. That way, maybe you can plan to get a coffee or a drink, a little later after their presentation, or maybe before.
Right on. And while you're at the event, how can you use Twitter or social media in the right way? Following the hashtag, all that stuff is a great way to do it. Have you seen the best ways to use Twitter and maybe some of the other social networks?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, during the event, yes, the hashtag is great. And by the way, during my presentation, I will be sharing many of these tips for the attendees. So my plan is in my presentation is to make every attendee walk away with great advice to use during and after New Media Expo, so that they can make the most of it. So, but to that point, I think geolocation is really important. So if you do a Twitter advanced search and you search for the hashtag by zip code, that's especially for an event like NMX or a South by or something like that, where there's so many people on Twitter. You want to try to hone it down to location. So if you can do the use Twitter advanced search and search for the hashtag of the conference, but also the zip code of Las Vegas, whatever it is, or Las Vegas as a city. That way you'll get only tweets, give or take, but only tweets within that area, and so that you won't be getting tons of noise from outside of Vegas.
Great. So we've touched on prepping to go to the conference, some tips while you're at the conference, meeting the speakers. Now, after you've collected your information, how do you leverage after the conference? Basically, you leave the conference, everything goes crickets, you don't hear anything anymore. How do you really leverage those relationships going forward?
Well, it's important to, when you do return, especially for something, over several days, people are usually pretty busy, so it's good to give them a little time, maybe a little buffer time, before sending an email, because they're probably catching up on a million different emails, and they themselves are probably following up with people they met at the conference. So it's good to consider that. But send an email to everybody you met and include a LinkedIn connection request. You could do it through LinkedIn. Not everybody is as connected on LinkedIn, and sometimes may miss those messages if they're not a heavy LinkedIn user and if they don't have notifications set up in their email. But at the very least, send them an email, remind them, follow up by saying, it was wonderful meeting you. Remind them about who you are and what you talked about, not with like a long paragraph, but just a sentence or two, just saying, it was wonderful meeting you after, by the Penn and Teller poster at the Rio and talking about magic, because Penn and Teller rock, by the way. I'm a big Penn and Teller fan. Yeah,
having something that they can really recognize, that they remember of you individually, that stands you out from the rest.
That's right. Yeah. So do that, and then make it, and then have a call to action at the end of the email. Have some sort of next thing. So it shouldn't just be in everything online marketing. I think about this a lot. You can end it by saying it was great to meet you. Bye. Or you can say it was great to meet you. Hey, let's connect on LinkedIn. Here's a link to my profile, so we can keep in contact. Or here's a link to my blog post recap that I wrote about all the wonderful people and things that I experienced in Vegas, during NMX or whatever it is. So I think those are some good ways.
Thank you. Let's conclude by telling people about your book and what's new with your business.
This book that just happens to be right next to me, called New Business Networking. That was the most shameless plug I think I've ever done. I'm sorry. I'm really not good at the shameless self. Well, I'm good at the shameless, but not so good at the self promotion. Sometimes it's pretty bad. It's
I'm
bad.
the same way.
I'm great at promoting things that are free. I do a lot of events and things, but all like co-founding PodCamp and BarCamp here and in Nashville and a couple other monthly events that I do. They're all free, right? And so it's easy to shamelessly promote free stuff because you're not asking for anything in return. But yeah, anyway, let's talk about my book. What would you like to know?
Well, you could be pitching someone to buy 300 of them.
Yes, that's true. Go ahead and purchase 300. So new business networking. Yeah. What would you like to know specifically? Like what the book's about or how it came about or?
Yeah, I would say what are you doing going forward? What is your 2014 look? What conferences are you going to?
Mm-hmm. I'm the one conference. I've got a few lined up right now, and I'm working on lining up several other events. One conference that I'm speaking at, I'm really excited about, is in April in New Orleans, and it's the American Marketing Association's Youth Conference, where I'll be keynoting to I think it's like 1,500 students about the importance of networking. And I find that I speak a lot at universities and colleges about networking to students. And I wrote the book with students in mind too. Originally, it was conceived as a book just for managers and things like that, or senior people, and it is. But it's also written for students and people between jobs who are maybe rethinking how they their career or whatever. So that one I'm very excited about, and I have a list of. If you go to davedelaney.ca, that's a site that's the page that has information about me speaking and things too. So, but I'm excited about that event.
Yeah, that's interesting that you wrote it for students because growing up, I guess going through college, I went to conferences and stuff, but I really didn't analyze, I guess, me going to conferences and really figuring out. Those people that I meet, I may be seeing these people for years to come, and I definitely saw that going to South by Southwest for many years, and or just a local bar camps or meetups. Yeah, you could be at any conference and you're not really sure who you're talking to that's next to you. It could be somebody from a big company, or it could be someone who may hire you that you don't know. That's a really good point. Have you seen that the younger generation is taking this, or they're glazing over their eyes? This is just way too simple stuff.
It's interesting. Often when I speak to students, I'll do I'll ask for a show of hands of how many people are on LinkedIn, and it's always like a quarter of the room, and it freaks me out because LinkedIn is so important for them to be on building their networks. The whole thing about networking is building your network before you actually need it, and having a network to lean on should you need them later.
It's your foundation.
Right, exactly. So if you can't just, graduate and then think, okay, got to set up a LinkedIn account so I can try to find a job now. It doesn't work that way. I mean, you can try and good luck with that.
Oh, not 9 out of 10 of my potential clients all check my LinkedIn. Absolutely.
Yeah, LinkedIn is very important. It's important for people to check, but it's it's also important just to have that network of people so you can actually connect with, you can use their advanced search and search out a company you want to work for and find who works there, or who knows somebody that knows someone that works there, so you can get an introduction. So, I think that's extremely important. Yeah.
Well, thanks a lot, Dave. I really appreciate your time, and I'll see you in Vegas.
Yeah, I'll see you in Vegas. Can't wait.